Hello, and welcome back to the Yvonne Noble's Going Places podcast. New you. Wow, we are so excited to have a very special guest today, Scott Perry. He is an encore life coach, helping people in midlife reconnect with their soul's true calling and turn it into a fulfilling part-time coaching business. Now, Scott himself has pursued several vocations, ranging from a successful career as a professional musician to a 4-year contract as a head coach at Seth Godin's Akimbo workshops. And now he is the leader of a movement to help others turn their midlife into their best life. How are you today, Scott?
I am perfect in every way, Yvonne, especially since I get to spend this little bit of time with you. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, awesome. We always kick it off with a little bit of an icebreaker. So, can you tell us something interesting about yourself that most people do not know? A hidden gem.
I think the thing that people are always most intrigued by is my daily ritual of what I call my cemetery run.
Oh,
I go for a 4 to 5 mile run at the cemetery every day. There is a story behind that, but it kind of happened by accident. But now that I've been doing it for, I don't know, 7 years or so, it's actually become kind of my meditation. It's a way that I kind of remind myself that my time on earth is finite, and I should probably make the best use of the life I have while it's still mine to do something with. And it's also just a place that's in a very beautiful spot atop a hill in the center of town. I can see the Blue Ridge Mountains, and there's lots of wildlife around, and of course the birds flitting about, the geese flying overhead, and it's just a beautiful way to kind of start my day with connection to nature, connecting from in my internal my character and my aspirations and all that. And yeah, so I run to the cemetery every day because I'm a weirdo.
well, I was going to say that's phenomenal. I am curious though, when you said there's a story behind it, did you, when you first started 7 years ago with that, was it intentional or did you kind of stumble upon it?
Uh, well, so the short version of the story is I have been a runner for a number of years, and my wife and I raised our 2 sons on a farm in the northern part of the county that we live in.
Nice.
When the boys grew up and moved out, we decided to sell the farm and move to town, but I wanted to maintain my running habit. I was really excited because in town we have sidewalks and crosswalks and all this kind of good thing. On my very first run, I was crossing a crosswalk and I literally came within an inch of being hit by a car.
Oh
It
my
was so
goodness.
close that I could feel the passenger side mirror tug at the fabric of my long sleeve running shirt. It's just so happened that my run that I had mapped out was taking me to the cemetery and back, and I decided at that point that if I didn't want to end up in the cemetery, I should probably drive to the cemetery and just take care of my run there. It's like a little over a half-mile loop when you go around. So I do this loop, several times as part of my regular exercise routine. So yeah, that's how I ended up running at the cemetery, which is, like most things, just it was a serendipity that brought me to this ritual that now is a really important part of my day.
Oh, wow. That is so awesome. And just a reminder to our listeners that there is a method to the madness. When something happens that's a bit out of sorts, find a way to put it into your routine. It just may take you to new levels. So, very curious since you've had such a wide variety of vocational accomplishments. Tell us a little bit about your journey. Like, how did you know and when that you were actually bit by the entrepreneurial bug and you wanted to work for you?
Mm. Well, I honestly, I've had that since I was a really small child. I mean, part of my entrepreneurial origin story is my first entrepreneurial endeavor was a lemonade stand
Oh,
that I started. That I had it when I was, I think, 7 years old.
awesome.
Of course, my parents were heavily involved. I think my dad, would set up the sawhorses and the board and all that for me. And the first thing in the morning, my mom would, of course, make the lemonade. But I had this idea that if I went out at 7 o'clock in the morning, I could catch the garbage men as they were coming through the neighborhood and the mail delivery person as they were coming through the neighborhood. And oftentimes I would sell out within a half hour, 45 minutes. And,
Brilliant.
I also had, had worked it out to get everybody else to do the labor for me. So all I had to do was sit there and collect the money, and then I was kind of done for the day. So that was like literally my first entrepreneurial endeavor. And then later, as a very young teen, a friend and I were very enamored with a show that came on called The Muppets. And so people
Yep.
may be
Jim
familiar with
Henson,
Sesame Street,
right?
Jim Henson. The Muppet Show was just, it completely captured my friends and I uh, um, imagination. And my mom subscribed to Woman's Day, and there was this issue that had patterns for making Muppet style puppets. And so my friend Andy and I just started with those designs. And then we started designing our own patterns, and we created all these puppets, built a puppet stage, and started staging shows in the neighborhood. Once again, enlisted my mother to sell popcorn out the kitchen window at intermission and sell lemonade. And we did that for an entire summer, and we really made a killing because the whole neighborhood was made up of young kids and parents, and so that not only was kind of an entrepreneurial endeavor, but it also spoke to my love for performing, which I think informed my desire to become a musician later in life.
Beautiful. What type of musician were you?
Well, I like to say that I played good music, but if you wanted me to be more specific, uh, I I learned how to taught myself mostly. I did have a few good teachers along the way, but at the beginning it was mostly blues and old, what I call vintage country, vintage rock, vintage blues. I later pursued an interest in jazz guitar and did hook up with some excellent teachers when I was doing that. And so for over 25 years, I made a living primarily as a performing musician and a guitar teacher.
Beautiful. And taking note of the beautiful electric guitar on your wall there. Does it have a name?
I do not name my guitars, but that is it's actually a national Resophonic guitar. It's a steel-bodied guitar,
Wow.
nickel-plated, and it does have a pickup in it. But it's a very unique instrument that was one of the more popular guitars right before the age of electricity and amplification, because they have acoustic amplifiers built into them, and so they're kind of naturally a little bit louder.
That is so awesome. At the start of the pandemic, I splurged and bought an electric guitar to teach myself. So I thought, my husband will tell you to this day, I don't know how to play a single song. But when you allow me to plug in the amp and just let loose, you think I know what I'm doing. I mean, it's just making noise. So kudos to you, a quarter century performing. Do you have any like highlights, any favorite appearances you made that really stick with you?
Uh, I was I think I call myself the Forrest Gump of the blues because I just from the time I was in college, which was when I really started performing, until the end of my career just a few years ago, um, I I would just get this idea that I wanted to meet whoever my hero of the moment was, and somehow they would appear in my life. They would be playing in my neighborhood, or I would be booked on a festival stage or in a venue where they were also, I would share the bill with them. And so, I mean, literally, from some of the old school blues guys that were still around, like Johnny Shines and Robert Jr. Lockwood, to more familiar names like Taj Mahal and Buddy Guy. These are people that I actually had opportunities to hang out with and play either backstage or on stage with, and in that way I had a really blessed career. I don't obviously, I didn't ever achieve, the status of an Eric Clapton or a BB King or anything like that. But, one of the things that I think one of the things that I'm really proud of is that, making a living as a musician is incredibly difficult. And, when you are in what I call the messy middle, where you're primarily performing, locally or doing small, runs up and down the East Coast with the occasional maybe big time venue or festival appearance. it can be really challenging just to make a living. And
Hmm.
not only did I make a living, but I maintained a happy marriage. Was able to homeschool my two sons, and paid the mortgage, made the car payments, paid all the bills, and did that for a long time. And I think it's not lost on me that that is not the easiest thing in the world to do. And of course, I had lots of privilege that enabled me to do it as well. But just feel so very, very grateful that I got to experience. I just got that idea that this is what I was being called to do at the moment,
Beautiful.
and I was able to sustain it for a long period of time while maintaining all my other responsibilities.
That's super impressive. And let's just take a quick segue into talking about the role of mindset and manifesting in those 25 years. You mentioned that there were certain heroes of yours at the time that suddenly would just show up in your town or you'd share the bill. How do you think that played out? Do you think it was just coincidence?
I don't believe in coincidence. I'm a firm believer in destiny. Our lives unfold as they are intended to unfold, which some people, and sometimes manifesting has this reputation of, oh, I'll just put it out to the universe and the universe will heed my wishes and conspire to fulfill, my every woman desire. And I don't think that's, the way way it really works, but there is power in aspiration and intention setting. And when you leverage that alongside of the effort, the integrity of your pursuit, and just the way that you maintain integrity of character, integrity of intent, I do feel like things happen as they were meant to happen. And so while some people might think that a destined life means you can just sit back and wait for life to happen to you, I'm a firm believer that when you engage fully in the life that you were meant to live, then life happens through you, and it
Mm.
becomes just a much more vibrant, beautiful, abundant, and brings a lot more joy and equanimity into your life when you really fully engage in the life that you were meant to live.
So profound. So profound. And there's a standing question I tend to ask all my guests. So I'm going to jump ahead to that one because it's a bit more apropos. What is your opinion? Do you choose your calling or does your calling choose you? And why?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, I would, I think the way, I'm not sure what the answer is, but
Mm-hmm.
I think it can be a both and proposition. There are moments in my life where um, I was unable to hear and therefore unable to heed the call of vocation in my life. And what instead of just waiting for purpose and passion to be bestowed upon me so I could do something with it, I just pursued the things that the opportunities in front of me with purpose and passion. And I feel like oftentimes that helped clarify and helped me get more confident in what destiny really had in store for me.
Right.
I do believe, and a lot of my thinking around this is informed from books I read very young. The Meditations of Marcus Aurelius, which is a seminal text about Stoic philosophy, and the Bhagavad Gita, which is a book written in Sanskrit from the yoga tradition that is really all about vocation. And in both those traditions, there is this idea that you are born with a vocation, that life wants to speak through you. And, the challenge is, can you practice both stillness and motion, what I call stillness in motion,
Mm-hmm.
so that you can hear your life speaking to you, so that your life can start speaking through you. So I think it can happen. It happens different ways for different people. But the idea that, I do feel like, I can't remember whose quote it is, but I'm in agreement with, we are not human beings seeking a spiritual experience. I think we're spiritual beings seeking a human experience, and the more that we can tap into, um, what destiny has in store for us, what life wants to speak through us, and if we can be still enough to hear that and then act upon it with as much intention and integrity as we can, then we can have the best of both ways of looking at it.
Such a beautiful explanation. So, given those beliefs, what advice would you proffer to those that hear it but are ignoring or resisting it?
Well, I guess my first instinct is to say it's not your fault. I mean, we are creatures that are hardwired by biology and evolution to, fit in. We love the status quo. We love to know what's expected of us and where we stand. And so it is natural for us to just conform and comply and go along with whatever society is asking of us, and a lot of institutionalized education and occupation is about this idea of compliance and doing what following somebody else's roadmap. If you do these things, we will reward you with distractions and pleasures. And for a lot of people, they never wake up to the idea that they actually might have been born to do more and better within four more. Um, so I think one of the reasons why I work primarily with people who, like me, are in their midlife, somewhere in that 40 to 65 range,
Hmm.
is that for many of us, and it can happen much sooner. I certainly have had clients in their 20s that have woken up to the idea, like, I think there's more to my life than you know what the guidance counselor told me after high school.
Hmm.
But for most of us in midlife, we come to a moment. Maybe it's a moment of crisis where we're woken up to the fact through some terrible trauma, fall, whatever, that we've been sold a false bill of goods and we've been kind of going along. And the thing about experiencing that kind of fall, whether it's a loss of position in a job, loss of a relationship, an intimate relationship in life, um, we have a choice. You can be broken and remain broken, and that is certainly a tragic thing that we see with the rise of depression and drug abuse, alcohol abuse. But it's also an opportunity, and you were touching on this a little bit right after the intro, in that we can leverage our obstacles and misfortunes into opportunities and find silver linings that help us, instead of remaining broken, be broken open. And when we are
Hmm.
broken open, we can l- literally, our minds are changed, our way of being is changed, the way that we engage and act in the world changes, our behavior and attitude changes, because we are woken up to the idea that there's more to it than all the external rewards and validation we've been seeking, and that there's so much more potential and promise within us that we now have a finite, even more finite time to achieve. But I think that puts kind of focuses the attention and brings in the urgency that gets some people to decide that they're going to pursue this higher calling, this as you said in your introduction, your soul's true calling, which often is related to everything that filled us with awe and wonder as children. I mean, I think it can be really important to take a look back at what lit me up when I was a kid, because it
Yeah.
probably is the same thing that lights you up now that you haven't been doing enough of.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't it funny? I always say, as children, there's all this energy, there's imagination, there are things that, oh, that's what children do. But for some reason, as we grow and we mature and we age, those are deemed wrong. But those are the very things that can give you the ticket to freedom, that can turn on the switch. And would you agree that as coaches, that's all we do, is we're tour guides on people's journeys to light up. And sometimes it takes looking over your shoulder. And as you said, just thinking back to what did I love as a child? It's in there. It's still in there. But realistically, even on the road to success, there's going to be some roadblocks, some speed bumps. What have you encountered on your journey? What are some things that you overcame? And if you can share some insight on exactly what helped you do it.
Sure. Well, when I graduated from college, I had every intention going into college to be being a teacher. And when I graduated, I became a teacher. I taught at some relatively famous institutions that some people would recognize the names of, and you would have thought, oh, he won the lottery. It turned out that these famous places also had a darker side that you don't see
Yep.
until you're in it, and it became clear to me that teaching in that setting was not my true calling, but kind of a shadow calling. And so I bumped around and did a couple other things. I, had this idea that music was my calling, and um, even as a musician, I was very much a teacher. I was always trying to explain the relevance of this old music that I was so in love with and fond of, and teaching bandmates how to be better people, be better players, be better performers, connecting, serving audiences and so forth. Teaching guitar was the thing that I thought, oh, this is actually it, because I probably, up until what I'm doing now, love that more than anything I'd ever done.
Mm.
And when I began to have a sense that there was something else I was being called to do, I entered a program called the Alt MBA. It's one of Seth Godin's programs, who I later became a head coach for.
Hmm.
And I thought I was going in there to figure out how I was going to turn my very successful guitar, brick and mortar guitar store into an online empire, and live the dream of earning money while I sleep and all that. By the time that program was over, just 4 weeks, I didn't really want to be either a performing musician or a guitar teacher anymore,
Mm.
but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so, my first obstacle was figuring out, like, what am I going to be when I grow up now? What's the work that I'm meant to do now? What's the difference only I can make right now based on all this lived experience and wisdom that I've earned? It took me 3.5 years to land on coaching, and it took me another 2.5 years to figure out, like, exactly what that coaching was going to look like. One of the things that I teach now, or work with clients on, is, well, it took me 6 years, but we can get you going in 6 months, because I made all the mistakes, and I'm going to show you how to avoid all
Beautiful.
of them.
Yep.
And I'm going to give you a very clear process for how you can dial in your offer, dial in the audience that you're really truly meant to serve, and dial in a strategy for marketing and selling your services so that you can actually make a living while you're making a difference. And
Mm.
so, just I think at some point, what I notice in working with a lot of the folks that I work with is they're always trying to figure out, like, what do I need to learn, or how do I get my mindset right so I can do the thing I want to do? And I always invert that, because I don't think mindset informs our posture in the world. I think posture informs our mindset. You don't change your mind until you change your way of being in the world. And the best way that I know to get people to, nudge their way into the way of being, the becoming that they want to step into, is small steps. I
Mhm.
always distill things down. What's the smallest step into your potential and possibility that we could take right after this call? What's the
Mm.
smallest action that you can take today, and again tomorrow, and again tomorrow? And we'll continue to build on that week after week until we have actually, through people always talk in coaching about transformation.
Mhm.
I'm a transformation coach. I transform people's lives, and transformation sounds like it's this thing that happens in a moment, and it actually that's just a moment when a critical mass of small transitions and shifts have finally led to this revelatory epiphanal moment where you're like, oh, I I am engaging with myself, with other people, with the world in a very different way. But it doesn't happen in an instant. It happens in a sequence of instants. So I'm a big fan of, smallest viable offer, smallest viable audience, smallest viable strategy, and you do the work every single day. It doesn't mean that you have to work all day every day, but it
Mhm.
does mean that you have to do something. And I think you can change your life with even a 1 minute habit if you execute it every single day.
Awesome. You're making me think of living here in South Florida. The beach plays in so much into your day to day. And though I cannot swim, I do love going and watching when the tide comes in. And the thing that always amazes me about a wave is as giant as it looks, it's just made up and composed of these tiny little drops. And if just one of those drops was missing, wouldn't be the same wave. So
Hmm.
that transformation moment that you speak of, this collective shift, that epiphany, it's all those little things you did all along. So I love how you just broke that down, just 1 minute a day. Do something. And I hope you listeners caught that the intent of your coach is to collapse time. You're not necessarily paying for information. You're not paying for knowledge. You're paying for time. That is the only resource that once it's gone, you don't get it back. So if you don't have a coach yet, make sure you go find one ASAP. Because when you save time and you convert that into life that you can live the way you want to on your terms, you really can't put a price tag on that. So, very, very curious, Scott. Which accomplishment are you most proud of? Which one would you say brings you the most joy to date?
Um, from the moment I had a Gmail signature, my signature has been Scott Perry, husband, father, teacher, musician. And those are my priorities. My marriage is my number one accomplishment. My raising two healthy boys is my second. Um, I just sat down for this interview after providing care for my grandson, who is with my wife right now. We provide full time daycare for our 6 month old grandson Jasper. Um, I think family has always been the top priority and is my proudest accomplishment, just because it was something I knew from I mean, I actually kept it. So I grew up watching reruns of Leave It to Beaver, Father Knows Best, The Partridge Family, The
Yeah,
Brady Bunch, and I literally took notes on how, on like, this is the kind of parent I want to be.
awesome.
And so it's something I've wanted from a very early age, and just cannot believe my great good luck and fortune in having two wonderful marrying a wonderful woman, having two fabulous sons, a wonderful daughter-in-law, and now, you know, this grandson who is reminding me of, what it's like to spend every moment in awe and wonder, and have almost every experience be novel, new. To be so full of curiosity and confidently figuring out the environment. It's really spectacular.
Oh, wonderful. That is fantastic. Now, I typically ask about your top three sources of inspiration at this point. I feel like I can kind of fill in the blanks, but I'm going to have you go ahead and answer that. Top three.
Yeah, so Marcus Aurelius's meditations and the Bhagavad Gita are ancient philosophical spiritual texts that have informed and inspired everything I've done ever since the seventh grade. Uh, if I guess I'll circle back to what you already shared, which is, we you are very much, um, a factor of the people you spend the most time with. You know, Goethe says, "Tell me who you consort with, and I will tell you who you are." And of course, we are all born into families and into neighborhoods, and you know, there are certain people that um, we're going to have to spend some time with, whether or not they support and encourage our, you know, adventures and aspirations in becoming who we seek to become. And in this age, especially, you know, we get to choose how much time we spend with people that fuel our lives, and how much time we spend with people who, you know, deplete our energy and exhaust us. And I would, you know, be very mindful of that. And, you know, to your point, uh, you know, seek, whether it's you call it a guide, a mentor, a coach, or whatever, but you need a person in your life that is going to be a guide, a fellow traveler who will help you see what you don't see in a way that you can't unsee it, so
Hmm.
that you can start to step into and live into your potential. You need someone in your life that will help you see, step into, stay in, and share your power to become a better version, the best version of you that you can possibly become. So I would say that's the third resource.
Awesome. Yeah, it kind of makes me think of when you fuel up your vehicle, for those that might not have electric cars quite yet. You never think about the fact that regardless of what the fuel rates are, it's not an option. It needs gas to run. So why do we think that in our lives we don't need someone to pour into us? We don't need fuel to grow. We stay stagnant, we remain stuck, or sometimes we can even regress if we don't have support. And just because you don't have it today doesn't mean that you don't have the means to go find someone who's going to be phenomenal for you. And I love how you said that, that really we have the power. We get to make a choice. Yeah, family is a given. Certain friends are going to be there till the end, but to have the power to go find someone that can help redefine you, that's like amazing. So, can you tell us a little bit about what you're working on? What's new? What should we be looking out for?
Well, primarily my work right now is a program called the Art of Encore Living, which, as you shared, I'm trying to help people in midlife reconnect with their soul's true calling and craft that into a fulfilling part-time coaching business where they can leverage their hard-earned wisdom and experience in an effort to live their legacy. You know, when you get to be this age, legacy becomes something that you're really concerned about. What am I going to leave behind? But we believe that legacy is something you live. Legacy is the monuments and money you leave behind. It's the difference you're making right now.
Yeah,
And so uh, primarily that looks like, you know, one-on-one coaching. We have a course that helps people define the difference only they can make, their life's true calling. And if you go to creativeonpurpose.com, there's all sorts of insight and inspiration just in the free resources, the blog and the broadcast, and of course we have all sorts of other programs that you can take a look at as well. But really, you know, when we say we're on a mission to help people find their soul's true calling, it truly is that we have a very vibrant community of people that are making a difference in the world by leveraging their unique gifts and superpowers. You know, and as you know, Yvonne, the world has never been in more desperate need of people that are willing to step into their power and share it with others and make things better.
absolutely. And other than your website, are there any other means by which listeners can get in touch with you or your team?
You know, if you Google Scott Perry and Creative on Purpose, you'll find the Facebook page, the LinkedIn profile. I'm barely on Instagram, but if that's your jam, you can find me there. I have several books out on Amazon. A couple of them are bestsellers, and if again, you can just Google all that information, and if there's if you find some insight and inspiration in anything that I'm putting out, it makes me I'm always gratified to hear from people that resonate with the things that I'm sharing. I try to stay insightful and inspirational in all of my online activities.
And it shows. So I'm also going to get those links from you. That way, if any listeners want to just open up the write-up and click directly, then you'll be able to get in touch with Scott very easily. This last question is kind of hypothetical.
Mhm.
So always intrigued to hear what guests have to say. Let's imagine that you could go back in time 20 years and you had just a couple minutes to confront your younger self. What are you saying?
um, it's a really interesting thought experiment, and I I think one of the qualities that I've had throughout my life is I always, had a sense that I could figure it out, that I could do anything that I really set my mind to. I
Mhm.
don't know that I would want to. I don't think I could be where I am today without having navigated all the adversity and all the challenges and all the uncertainty of that I've navigated through all of these various endeavors that I've pursued and all these various relationships I've had. So I think if I were to say anything to my 20-year younger self, I would just reassure him that, yeah, you'll figure it out.
Beautiful, concise, but accurate. And the real intent of that question is a parting gift because 20 years from now, we want you to be saying the same thing to yourself. Inevitably, as an entrepreneur, there's days that are up and there's days that are down. But hey, you'll figure it out. Keep being amazing. Do you have any parting words for our listeners today?
I would just say that, the things that, as you said, the entrepreneurial life is a life where we accept challenge and failure as part as they're just table stakes. They are things that you have to be willing to invest in, and the things that what modern psychology and neuroscience has taught us, and actually it has ancient spiritual and philosophical traditions teach the same thing. The best way to navigate all of life's victories and vicissitudes is to remain grateful and to be generous. And if you practice gratitude and practice generosity every single day, do your work with intention and integrity. Those are their own rewards. The results, the rewards, um, those are side effects that may or may not come, but they usually do come if you're leaning into your work with gratitude, with generosity, with intention, and with integrity. So enjoy the process and let destiny unfold in the way it was going to unfold anyways.
Such profound insights. Words cannot express our gratitude for your taking the time to come through and share them with us. So, listeners, do be mindful. If you know anyone who needs to hear this message, share it, please. And anyone who's special in your life, let them know. Today is not guaranteed, but you have it. Make the most of it. Scott Perry, thank you so much for coming through today and wishing you nothing but limitless success as you continue on. Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. Be sure to share this video and like, comment, and subscribe. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at NewYouWow. Until next time, stand tall in your power and remember, your belief in yourself is your superpower.